has weaponized the seas against us.
It's infiltrated every source of water.
Saving the world is every billionaire's favorite pastime.
When whales become aggressive, disturbing the oceanic ecosystem by carrying ancient viruses that attack the world, can humanity withstand this survival challenge? The film begins with a man fishing. After finding the perfect spot, he expertly casts his net. However, when pulling it back, he struggles and loses balance, falling into the sea. He sees his fishing net sinking and takes a deep breath before diving down to retrieve it. Just as he is about to cut the stuck net, the sea around him darkens and he looks up to see a swarm of massive fish swimming towards him. The strangeness doesn't stop there. The next morning, the body of a 30-ton killer whale washes ashore with fatal wounds, clearly attacked. Leon from the Oceanographic Research Institute is baffled, unsure what divine force could kill the ocean's ruler. He suspects that the culprit might be a local fisherman. The investigation team quickly drives to a nearby fishing village. Leon meets a fisherman he knows. As soon as he mentions the beach whale, the fisherman's face turns grim. He then takes them to a nearby dock where a heavily damaged fishing boat is moored. Both sides of the boat are punctured by a tremendous force. The fishermen explain that they were attacked by the killer whale early that morning and had to arm themselves in defense. Leon doubts their story since killer whales are ferocious yet friendly to humans and wouldn't attack a fishing boat without reason. The fisherman, who has been fishing for years, refuses to elaborate, stating this is the first time he has encountered such an event. Leon remains silent, knowing from the cracks in the fishing boat that the fishermen are not lying, and immediately returns to the institute for further investigation. Normally, during this season, killer whales migrate elsewhere. So why is this whale here? Why did it attack humans? Leon turns to his girlfriend, Lizzie, a tour guide, for answers, as Lizzie often took tourists out to sea to watch whales. Leon warned her to be careful, but she remained unconcerned, always seeing whales as faithful friends of humans. However, Leon no longer felt this way. To ensure safety, he tried to scan the direction of the whales near the coastal area. Indeed, there were many whales swimming close to the shore. Leon urgently called Lizzie, but to his surprise, she was excitedly heading out to the deep sea with tourists. Leon had a bad feeling, but didn't want to interfere too much with her work. Later, he took a boat out to check on the whales. Wearing headphones, he saw a giant creature slowly swimming towards him, a mature humpback whale, known for its gentleness. Yet, Leon felt fear as he saw the whale's eyes filled with coldness and malice. Only when the whale left did he breathe a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, Lizzie was on a yacht with tourists in the deep sea, and the same whale approached their yacht. It leaped from the water, surprising and thrilling the tourists. However, Leon felt uneasy. He spotted 3 more whales swimming towards the yacht. He tried to contact the yacht's captain, but no one answered. Worried, Leon drove towards the yacht. The tourists were enjoying watching the humpback whales when suddenly one jumped from the water and crashed onto their boat, splitting it in half. All the tourists fell into the water. Then the 3 whales attacked them. When Leon arrived, the scene was chaotic. He tried to save the tourists and eventually found Lizzie. But as he tried to pull her up, a whale suddenly attacked, taking her life forever. Days later, Leon remained grief-stricken over losing his girlfriend. Puzzled why the gentle whales had suddenly attacked humans, Leon vowed to himself to find the cause of these attacks. One day, he learned that a large cargo ship in Canadian waters had also been attacked by humpback whales. According to the captain, 2 whales had suddenly leaped and crashed onto their ship, similar to the incident with Lizzie's boat. Leon was puzzled as to why the whales would aggressively target the ship. Upon inspecting the cargo vessel, he discovered something unusual. The crew had cleaned the hull before setting sail. But after several days at sea, numerous barnacles had attached to the hull. Leon collected some barnacles and took them to the laboratory for analysis. Experts confirmed these were barnacles, but noted that when they mature, they can no longer swim. This meant all the barnacles on the ship's hull had reproduced there rapidly. No other shellfish could proliferate so quickly. A colleague accidentally discovered that when broken, the barnacles leaked a white liquid. Even the experts couldn't determine its nature without more advanced equipment. Worried, Leon decided to autopsy the beach whale, hoping to uncover something abnormal. With the help of assistants, he quickly dissected the whale. Its organs appeared normal, but its brain contained a substance resembling a parasitic virus. though its exact nature was unclear. Meanwhile, on Silent Island in the Pacific, Detective Charlie, relegated there after accidentally setting a lab on fire, was gathering wood and heading to the lookout tower. She often video called colleagues to alleviate her loneliness. Suddenly, a buoy floating on the ocean's surface began to signal an alert. Charlie hastily took a boat towards the buoy. In the water, nothing unusual was initially visible. Charlie donned her diving gear to inspect the situation and discovered a surveillance device entangled in a fishing net. As she attempted to remove it, the alert on the buoy automatically disappeared, leaving her uneasy about what might be lurking beneath the sea. Fearful, Charlie quickly grabbed her scanning device and hurried back to the surface. Upon surfacing, she realized her boat had vanished. She looked around, attached the scanning device to the buoy, and swam forward. Eventually, she caught up with the drifting boat before exhaustion overtook her. Lying on the boat, she felt as though she had just survived a life-threatening ordeal. The next morning, a helicopter landed on Silent Island, bringing people from the research headquarters. Charlie was finally reunited with her close friends. The reason for their visit was somewhat comical. The scanner from the previous night had malfunctioned. While it was being repaired, Charlie took the opportunity to catch up with her friends. As the helicopter departed, she wistfully watched the sky, feeling the quick and fleeting visit of her dear friend. Unable to bear the solitude, Charlie headed to a bar where she met someone she really clicked with. That night, they established a relationship. Knowing Charlie had to go out to sea to set up the scanning device, her boyfriend insisted on accompanying her, concerned about her being alone on the ocean. As they deployed the scanning device into the sea, her boyfriend suddenly noticed foam appearing on the surface. Charlie explained that this substance, known as burning ice, forms undersea cables when methane gas thaws. Under high pressure and low temperatures, it freezes into chunks of ice that break up and float to the surface. However, her boyfriend grew anxious as he observed the unusually large amount of ice floating on the surface. Charlie was surprised by the sight and quickly used her phone to record the unusual phenomenon. After returning to the watchtower, she proactively reported the incident to her superiors, suggesting that the large-scale appearance of burning ice might indicate an anomaly on the seabed. Her superiors took the matter seriously and asked her to promptly check the scanning device to determine the cause. Meanwhile, on the seabed near the French coast, a greedy lobster was making its way toward a fish trap. When it was hoisted aboard a ship after several moves, it ended up on the chopping block. But as the chef was about to chop it, he noticed a white substance oozing from its tail. Taking a closer look, he was startled to see the lobster continuously leaking the white liquid. Angrily, the chef instructed his sous chef to dispose of the diseased lobster. Consequently, the sanitation worker who handled it was also exposed to the liquid. That night, the head chef felt exhausted and sweaty. Stepping outside for fresh air, he unexpectedly collapsed. It appeared that the virus from the lobster had infected him. Soon after, he died en route to his home, while the sous chef also fell into a coma and was hospitalized. Anyone who came into contact with the lobster suffered from poisoning reactions of varying degrees. These two consecutive poisoning cases quickly caught the attention of Dr. Seekley, who asked a colleague to monitor the patients while she went to the restaurant to investigate the situation. The staff informed Dr. Seekley that, besides the head chef and sous chef who had been in contact with the lobster, a sanitation worker who had thrown it into the waste processor was also absent from work that day. Feeling uneasy, Seekley followed the address provided to her and arrived at the sanitation worker's house, only to find the door open. As she cautiously entered, her phone rang. It was news that the sous chef had suddenly had severe convulsions that morning. His pupils dilated, and then he stopped breathing. Before Seekley could end the call, she discovered the sanitation worker dead in the bedroom, leaving her utterly shocked. After alerting the police, Seekley quickly returned to the lab and conducted a frightening experiment. She mixed a small amount of the deceased head chef's blood with her own. The virus in the chef's blood aggressively consumed her blood cells. Seekley realized it was a harmful vibrio virus typically transmitted through wounds or raw seafood, which normally doesn't cause death. However, it wasn't just breaking down human immune systems. The cell proliferation rate was alarmingly fast, suggesting it might have mutated into a new type of virus. Just when Seekley thought no more infections would occur, a car wash employee showed strange symptoms. He felt dizzy and, after struggling to hold himself up, collapsed, spewing blood from his mouth and losing consciousness. The car wash employee was quickly rushed to the hospital. where it turned out the emergency room was already overflowing with patients showing similar symptoms. The local government quickly took an interest in the incident as experts rushed to the scene to identify the source of the virus. Though Seekly knew most about it, she was certain that the virus was not airborne. Remembering what a staff member had mentioned about the sanitation worker who had disposed of the lobster into the waste processor, Seekly realized that the virus had likely spread throughout the city's water system. Deeply concerned, she immediately purchased bottled water and instructed her family to avoid the seaside and be cautious about drinking water, sensing a major disaster looming. Meanwhile, in the waters off Mexico, Dr. Siger, a marine biologist, flew by helicopter to an oil exploration vessel. The crew was anxious as they had encountered something terrifying during their underwater oil exploration, a plethora of white organisms, prompting them to call Dr. Siger for an examination. Initially, Siger found nothing serious, just a normal layer of sea ice. However, environmental scientist Tina noted that what was initially a 50 square meter area had expanded vastly across the seabed. Surprised, Siger moved the scanning device closer to the seabed, but it soon lost signal, a common occurrence the crew couldn't explain. Unperturbed, Siger took a sample of an ice worm back for testing. The results were shocking. The worm had teeth and a rapidly fast growth rate, indicating it might be a new species. If true, local governments should consider protective measures and halt further oil exploration in this area. Siger sent the sample to a mainland research institute for further investigation. In a 24-hour simulation experiment, the researchers found that ice worms were able to consume biological mats and then burrow under the ice surface. This behavior explains why they have large teeth. However, everyone wonders why the worms do this, since there is no food underneath the ice, leading them to eventually suffocate and die. Tina, particularly concerned about the worm's terrifying ability to reproduce, decided to report this to her superiors, especially since the ice worm had the potential to overrun oil fields, affecting progress. Corporate exploration. The response from above was clear. Exploration activities must not stop but must comply with local environmental protection policies. Tina felt helpless and focused on researching the newly discovered ice worm. Soon after, the crew returned to find that the probe had sunk. Dr. Siger observed that the number of tapeworms had increased significantly. They planned to drill to the seabed to investigate further. When the drill bit touched the seabed, the probe began to shake slightly. Bubbles and large waves appeared on the water surface, causing the ship to shake continuously. Luckily, the waves came and went quickly, and the sea calmed down soon after. Experts explained that when the drill bit penetrated the seabed, methane gas was released, causing the observed phenomenon. Luckily, their ships were big enough, otherwise it will sink. Siger and others fear for human safety if research continues. During the simulation, even though the worms died after entering the ice, the viruses inside them continued to decompose the ice. This is why there is so much burnt ice appearing on the water's surface. However, experts reassure people that even if the ice cracks, the methane on the seabed will not be enough to disrupt the atmosphere. The only concern is the rate at which the worms reproduce. It is recommended to check other marine areas to see if there are similar species of ice worms. To ensure safety, Tina decided to spend a day investigating. If similar conditions occurred in multiple marine regions, the methane gas released could potentially affect the atmospheric layer. Meanwhile, aboard an exploration ship, two observers suddenly detected significant disturbances on the seabed. Subsequently, the entire ship began to shake, and water bubbles surfaced quickly, sinking the ship. The mainland research headquarters quickly learned that the exploration ship had sunk. Upon hearing this, Charlie, shocked and heartbroken by the accident involving her best friend, calmed herself and decided to return to headquarters to investigate the cause of the sinking as her last act for her deceased friend. Siger, not daring to delay, reported to his superiors about the two incidents of methane leakage. He suspected that the whale attacks on ships were related to the mutated ice worms at the seabed. The authorities sent the information to Riku, who quickly organized an online meeting because they had encountered similar ice worms during oil extraction in the South China Sea. Although these worms were not as large as those found in the Norwegian Sea, they also had sharp teeth. The company's senior management was somewhat puzzled and instructed all exploration vessels to temporarily avoid areas with high concentrations of ice worms. They also invited Siger and Charlie to sail out to define the extent of the mutated ice worms coverage. Meanwhile, Leon was also searching for evidence to explain his girlfriend's death. He traveled urgently to several countries, looking for reasons behind the whale attacks on humans. After marking the coordinates of the incidents, he realized they were familiar. It was a whale migration route. Something seemed to have occurred during their migration. With a bold thought, Leon asked his colleagues to scan the whale's resting locations. Leon, wearing diving gear, plunged into the water. As he descended to a certain depth, he encountered motionless giant whales. He carefully swam past each whale and attached a tiny camera to one of them. But this action awakened all the others. Not daring to delay, he quickly surfaced. As soon as he emerged, his colleagues pulled him onto the boat and sped away. Back at the research institute, Leon immediately connected to the camera to stream the footage, with all researchers watching intently. At the company headquarters, Charlie reported that they had found the sunken ship. Everyone at the screen was shocked when a silver light appeared behind the wrecked ship as the camera drew closer. Remembering her deceased friend, Charlie couldn't hold back her tears. Leon and his colleagues also noticed the silver light, which seemed like some sort of indicator. Meanwhile, on Kidong Beach in South Africa, a couple enjoying their time were suddenly disturbed by a white crab. Initially, they paid it no mind, but soon thousands of white crabs emerged from the sea, causing them to flee in terror. Fortunately, they escaped on a motorcycle in time, although they later crashed. The swarm of crabs quickly overtook the area. Luckily, local authorities had recently become aware of these oceanic changes. Back at the bottom of the sea, Leon and Charlie discovered the source of the mysterious silver light. The group was unsure about the origin of the silver light or its connection to the sunken ship and the whale attacks. Leon speculated that bioluminescent organisms like dinoflagellates could be the source, but these typically live on the water surface, not at the seabed, and there was also an odd sound fluctuating in intensity. Leon was certain it wasn't a marine creature, and his colleagues agreed. Considering historical military practices, one colleague suggested that the glowing object might be part of a secretive military experiment, as many such activities were masked as alien-related incidents in the past. Leon disagreed, pointing out the recent deadly events that needed further investigation. Meanwhile, the marine biologists had results from the barnacle tests. It turned out that mutated barnacles were not only found locally, but were a global phenomenon. Another discovery linked the virus in the whale brains to a transparent liquid leaking from the barnacles, both organic in nature, though further tests were required to identify the specific components. Feeling closer to unraveling the mystery, Leon drove to the port where the cargo ship had encountered trouble, intending to collect more barnacles for study. However, a guard told him that the area was restricted to unauthorized personnel. Undeterred, Leon attempted a stealthy night entry but was quickly discovered by security and, after a failed escape involving a hiding attempt in a cargo container detected by a police dog, he was detained as a suspected thief. When a man Leon had previously met appeared, he was released after explaining his scientific purpose to the shipping company's upper management. Fortuitously, the executives believed his story and, concerned about the potential impact of the mutated barnacles on their operations, supported Leon's research by providing him with several containers of barnacles. Subsequently, the shipping company's senior management immediately contacted their Asian region manager, Mr. Kiryu, reflecting their belief in a connection between the mutated barnacles and the newly discovered ice worms. The shipping conglomerate invited expert Sigurd to board an oil exploration vessel where they used a seabed robot to determine the extent of the ice worm coverage. However, the images relayed back left everyone dumbfounded. The seabed was severely damaged. Sigurd held back his anger and criticized Tina for bringing him there. This area, previously unexploited, had secretly had exploration pipelines installed by the conglomerate, a clear violation of the law. Tina, though innocent, found her explanations futile as both ended up not speaking to each other. Subsequently, Sigurd sought advice from Lehman, a more experienced figure. Lehman was well versed in these matters and warned that if exposed, the shipping conglomerate would certainly intervene, possibly scapegoating someone else. Lehman advised Sigurd to discuss things with Tina before taking any further action. Despite numerous calls, Tina did not respond, apparently still upset with Sigurd. Meanwhile, Charlie, having overcome her grief from losing her best friend, decided to leave her superiors and return to her watchtower. Fortunately, she was not alone anymore as her new boyfriend was waiting there, helping her feel a bit better. After spending a night together, Charlie reviewed the last video her friend had sent. In the background of her friend's window, she spotted a silver light similar to the one she had seen at the seabed. accompanied by fluctuating sounds. She extracted the sound frequency, finding it identical to the one from the seabed, and was astonished. She immediately contacted her colleagues at the headquarters. Charlie decided to report her findings to Lehman, but Lehman was busy discussing the dangers of the mutated ice worms with Sager. They were particularly concerned about the worms' distribution in steep seabed areas, their frightening reproductive traits, and their potential to cause landslides, which could trigger tsunamis. Unable to wait any longer, Charlie interrupted their discussion. When Charlie mentioned the silver light seen on the deck and the sound frequency similar to the one from the seabed, Lehman initially dismissed it as a possible signal interference. However, Charlie also pointed out the locations of methane leaks, explaining that the increase in water temperature at the time of the accidents caused the methane to surge, not the burrowing of the ice worms. Furthermore, between the three heat sources, there was a hydrothermal vent, which Lehman impatiently dismissed as inactive. Charlie insisted that the hydrothermal vent had become active again, having observed a large amount of burning ice floating on the water. To prove her point, she had requested a company robot to inspect the seabed. Lehman was furious, believing it a waste of resources to confirm such wild guesses, and walked away from the discussion. Fortunately, Sager was more open to Charlie's ideas, expressing that science is about bold conjectures and careful validations. He reminded Lehman, a senior manager, not to criticize a young person's learning spirit. Sager's words resonated with Lehman, who returned to the control room to start analyzing the data Charlie had organized, perhaps reconsidering her arguments and the implications of her findings. Continuous incidents at sea have attracted the attention of the Marine Protection Council. Sager also learned that in addition to mutant ice worms, there are also lobsters, striped bottles, whales, and other ocean creatures. He feels they have some connection. This statement has alerted senior leaders of the maritime group. He immediately gave Leon's phone number to Sager so the two could discuss. When Sager got the phone number, he immediately contacted Leon. Leon was willing to discuss with experts who were not in the same field as him. He shared research documents on striped bottles and dolphins with Sager, including silver streaks. After looking at Sager, he was extremely surprised because he had seen the scene before. Through comparison, the silver streak of light on the seabed was identical to the silver streak of light when the expedition ship crashed, but they could not determine where it originated. The only speculation is the hydrothermal vent theory that Charlie proposed. Sager felt the need to provide a diving robot for her to test. Not long after a helicopter landed on the Solern Islands, Sager personally gave the robot to Charlie. After sharing images of whales on the seabed, Charlie found it necessary to explore the seabed. Charlie was happy that someone finally believed what she said. After being cheered, Sager boarded a helicopter to leave, but as soon as he sat up, he received an emergency phone call. The nearby seabed collapsed, forcing him to go to high ground. Charlie's phone was left at home, not receiving a warning from his colleagues. At this time, Tina went to her boyfriend's restaurant, saw that the other person was ignoring her. She walked alone to the beach, when suddenly a flock of crows flew above her head. While everyone was stunned, the seawater suddenly receded. Tina quickly reacted. This is a sign of a tsunami. Tina and the crowd ran away. On the way, she met her boyfriend. Unexpectedly, he did not care about her and drove away. Charlie here also discovered that the tsunami was about to hit, and she wanted to remind tourists to evacuate quickly. Sager urged Charlie to get on the helicopter and flee. At the moment the tsunami hit, the helicopter just had time to fly into the sky, so the two people escaped. But Tina wasn't so lucky. It took her a long time to get in the car, but the tsunami appeared right before her eyes. She wanted to call Sager at the last moment of her life, but before the phone was connected, she was drowned in the tsunami. Sager arrived home safely. As soon as he turned on the phone, he received a message from Tina. "I can't imagine a day when the world doesn't have you anymore." This was her last sentence while alive. Sager now regrets saying things that hurt Tina. This tsunami submerged many coastal towns. Media reported that more than 1,000 people were missing. This makes disease expert Cecile even more worried. The previous infection also originated from the sea area. She hastily reported speculation about the Vibrio virus infecting the city's water system to the authorities. They had previously tested antiviral drugs, but they were ineffective. The only way is to warn people not to use tap water and stop fishing. The authorities ignored this, not wanting to cause economic damage just because of a few nonsense speculations. Hearing that, Cecily could only sigh and end the meeting. I already knew in my heart that the result would be like this. But when she saw news of many white crabs appearing elsewhere, Cecile remembered the lobster that caused the disease. Since it comes from the same sea, does it carry the same diseases as the lobster? Cecile conducts research on white crabs. She separated the crab shell inside and discovered a white lumpy substance. Cecile took a small sample and then dripped her blood into it. She saw that mutated Vibrio virus again. She immediately sent a message to the area where white crabs appeared in the hope that they could conduct a comparative study. The crabs change color and have no eyes, proving that they live near hydrothermal vents on the seabed. But why do they crawl ashore? Many such pathogens pose a threat many times greater than lobsters. Cecile immediately opened a press conference. The guests are all famous figures in related fields. Through a large amount of recent data and research evidence in Japan, South Africa, and coastal areas such as Brazil, white crabs coming ashore all carry mutated Vibrio viruses. In the future, this virus, if there is no vaccine, will spread to all water sources in coastal residential areas. Cecile speculates this will be the largest coastal migration ever. One expert raised the question that because the warming ocean causes ice to melt, people also discover many unknown viruses, but they do not cause many serious effects. Cecile shook her head, not daring to admit it. This time the virus was brought ashore by an unknown organism. Another expert raised the question of whether white crabs intentionally spread viruses in our water sources. Cecile's answer surprised everyone. The truth is like that. This meeting quickly spread to other countries. Sigger immediately contacted high-ranking maritime corporations, asking for support. He wanted to talk to Cecile and meet with expert Leon. Leon had just finished watching the news, and he also acknowledged Cecile's point of view. He went to the fishing village to advise the people to leave quickly. Unexpectedly, everyone refused because they were born and raised here. If they moved, they would have no place to live. Cecile had just returned to the hotel when she received a call from Sigger. It turned out that her point of view was very good, so Sigger wanted to discuss it with her. Cecile believes that there must be something behind this that is manipulating this matter. Previously, Cecile discovered that the virus on the lobster was brought ashore by fishermen, while the white crab carrying the disease climbed ashore on its own. But their purpose is destruction. White crabs cause greater damage. Sigger on the other end of the line repeatedly nodded in agreement. Whales, striped bottles, iceworms and other creatures he had come into contact with all seemed to have something to do with them. Sigger wanted to meet Cecile face to face. There were also experts from different fields. Leon sees that the whale's behavior is controlled by something. Charlie thinks the hydrothermal vent is active again. Cecile discovered mutated Vibrio virus. Sigger puts all the views together and discovers that something is definitely manipulating everything. It turns the ocean into a weapon against humans because the unusual phenomena that have recently occurred go against common sense. But expert layman believes that any phenomenon has an explanation, and having imagination and intuition is a good thing, but you cannot put aside the scientific basis. Charlie didn't want layman to leave like that, but he didn't expect her to say that the most important thing when doing research is to be careful. Otherwise, it will affect your honor. Almost everyone understands this principle, but they still choose to continue. Sigger called the senior management of the maritime company hoping to propose a plan at the board meeting, allowing the research to continue. But after his superiors learned that Lehman had withdrawn, he immediately wanted to reject this proposal, but Sigger still wanted to try by all means. Other members of the team were busy organizing the collected materials and research data into a thick report. Charlie's colleague Raheem suddenly had a thought. Those intelligent creatures don't want to destroy humans. They just want to drive humans out of the sea. Unfortunately, no one understands that. You must know that chasing and destroying are two completely different concepts. 3 days later, Sigger and the group attended the meeting. He raised the idea that there was a mysterious creature manipulating sea creatures to attack humans. Furthermore, its intelligence far surpasses that of humans. After all, no one can turn a mutant creature into a new species. But the council believes that Sigger's view is too one-sided and must be explained using science. He shook his head. He had ruled out laboratory accidents, nuclear leaks, and artificial organisms. A senior female asked if his speculation was true. Then what should be done next? Sigger said very loudly, "First, you must contact that mysterious force. Listen to the other person's request to try to reconcile." After a period of intense debate, The meeting ended, but the result left everyone speechless. The council did not accept Sigur's project, so he had no funding and had to stop searching for mystical forces. Fortunately, Maritime Group President Mr. Riku recognized Sigur's point of view. He originally made his fortune through the sea, so now he has the responsibility to repay it. Riku decides to sponsor Sigur, helping him verify his speculation. Everyone who knew this news was very happy. Leon brought two assistants, one of whom was his longtime partner, Alicia. The other person is astrophysics expert Samantha, who has collected sounds from Earth and the Milky Way. Sound waves of silver light have also appeared in Antarctica and the Arctic Ocean. Up to now, the research team has gathered enough. Sigurd named the mysterious force behind it IRR. He decided to depart 48 hours later into the deep sea to find the whereabouts of IRR. This mission is extremely dangerous. Sigurd cannot guarantee that the members will return alive. He advised everyone to think carefully whether to participate in this mission and take this opportunity to say goodbye to their loved ones. Unexpectedly, Rahim was the first to withdraw. He had 2 more years left until his PhD. Lemon cannot be displeased because of this. Besides, he also has a family. Charlie didn't say a word, just nodded and left. She couldn't forget her friends who died because of that silver streak of light. Besides Rahim, the other members of the group no longer withdrew. They spent a little time with their families before leaving. Charlie prepared as fully as possible. She listed her assets and gave the rights to her lawyer. Her biggest regret is breaking her promise to her children on their birthday to go on a trip with them. As for Sigurd, listening to Tina's message over and over again, he couldn't hold back his tears. After a moment of suffering, Sigurd mustered up the courage to delete the message. He was ready to forget the past. On the Maritime Corporation's expedition ship, the captain received a new order. They had to change direction to welcome new guests. Astrophysicist Samantha shows everyone the signal she previously recorded. That sound was identical to the sound made by the silver streak of light. This signal is extremely special and is mainly concentrated in the Arctic region. She speculates that this is one of the places inhabited by mystical creatures. Charlie has narrowed his search. The Malloy Sea has a depth of about 5,000 meters, very suitable for the development of advanced marine animals. Furthermore, the ice in this area over the past 2 years has melted more than half, making it more exposed to the outside world. That's also the reason why IRR hasn't had any movement in the past few years, and now it just appeared. Everyone present was surprised. The first research site was identified in the Malloy Sea area in the Arctic. The director of Riku Marine Company is the investor for this research station. He strictly requested that all activities of the researcher group be recorded, and moreover, uploaded to the cloud storage system. That way, even if the entire train is in danger, their discovery will not be lost. Alicia proactively accepted this task. Since she was a child, she has loved taking pictures. Leon is adjusting the sound wave generator. They are responsible for receiving signals from the IRR and finding ways to contact it. Seekly and Sigurd are in charge of researching the nervous organization of mutant organisms. They believe that IRR serves the purpose of controlling organisms by entering their nervous systems. On this side, Charlie is working with the diving equipment repair staff to adjust the submarine. If necessary, they will go into the sea to face the IRR directly. All members of the group are united in trying for the common goal, and their boat is sailing towards the Malloy Sea. When approaching the Arctic Sea area, the control compartment suddenly lost power, and the sonar receiver was also disturbed. Everyone is so used to this. In previous research, a similar phenomenon appeared. Could it be that they are already close to IRR's lair? When small icebergs began to appear on the sea surface, they finally came into contact with a familiar sound. Samantha was extremely happy seeing this, which proved that IRR was very close by. She decided to slightly adjust the sound waves they had just recorded, and then emit them at the same frequency to see if the other person would respond. The captain ordered the ship to go slower and played an audio clip with the addition of children's cries. This is a way to appear weak and negotiate peace. Samantha and Leon stared at the screen, not daring to blink for fear of missing some signal. On the other side, Charlie decided to go into the ocean himself. A small submarine is being dropped into the water. At the moment the compartment door opened, Charlie and the divers successfully entered the water. The submarine went deeper and deeper into the seabed. All around gradually became quiet. Only the submarine's lights emitted a weak light. Unexpectedly, the radar showed a herd of something approaching, but with the naked eye, nothing could be seen. At this time, The captain also discovered something unusual. He immediately ordered Leon to collect sound waves. As a result, Leon really captured strange sounds. When he played that sound, everyone on the boat was surprised. They had never heard such a strange sound. It's like a dolphin's cry, but much stronger. Next, the TV screen had interference again. Everyone thought it might be IRR. Right, now the most nervous people are Charlie and the divers in the water. Seeing the IRR getting closer and closer, the diver offered to return, but Charlie did not want to give up. She wanted to see with her own eyes what it was. When the submarine's lights went out, it immediately became one with the seawater. But the captain thought it was too dangerous, so he quickly called Charlie to the surface. Who would have thought that at a critical moment, the communication device suddenly lost signal? Everyone felt extremely worried. At this point, the diver couldn't stand it anymore. He quickly started the submarine to surface. When they saw the submarine compartment gradually open, everyone stopped worrying. Charlie regretted. She kept looking out. She then saw a beam of silver light approaching them. Unfortunately, within a few moments, the submarine was already on deck. She didn't even have time to confirm whether she was hallucinating just now or not. Charlie didn't dare mention this either. She just silently looked at the sea. Could that beam of light be IRR's true form? At this time, Leon and the others were extremely excited. They analyzed the audio they had just recorded. They could clearly hear the children crying. This is IRR's response to the signal they sent out earlier. Even though they didn't know what it meant, at least they could contact the IRR. Samantha is an expert in the field of interacting with strange creatures. She stretches each audio clip, then arranges it in a different order. A completed image appears on the screen. This is the evolution of humanity from marine creatures to the present. If IRR can accept and understand the signal, perhaps it will respect it and not continue to harm humans. Sackley also discovered that in the nerves of mutant animals there was a frighteningly high level of glutamic acid. This causes them to behave strangely. It is also possible that IRR uses this method to control marine species. Now, what Cecile has to do is find a way to reduce the amount of glutamic acid. Here, the person in charge recorded the entire process of Alicia trying to breathe and diving with Charlie. He didn't see the mysterious silver beam and didn't believe what Charlie saw. He thinks that researchers always have some strange things in their heads. They often imagine they can see what they want to see. Alicia looked at the back of the other person leaving. She helplessly shook her head. But at that moment, she discovered something swimming in the ship's cabin. When we got closer, we discovered that there were many silver light spots. Next, the lights started flashing and the entire boat lost power. When everything returned to normal, Alicia suddenly lay on the ground, not knowing whether she was alive or dead. Everyone hurriedly carried her to the medical room. Charlie discovered that Alicia had cerebrospinal fluid on her body. This proves that her brain or spine has been damaged. After a few hours of being treated, Alicia's indicators returned to normal, but a strange red mark suddenly appeared on her hand. Charlie guessed that Alicia's nervous system was injured, and a feeling of insecurity suddenly arose in her heart. She is too familiar with this method. So, with the help of Leon and everyone, she started taking out Alicia's bone marrow. Alicia could only twitch a few times out of instinct. Through a series of comparative tests, Cecile discovered that some of the ingredients were identical to those found in the mutant organism. That also means that the IRR wants to penetrate Alicia's nervous system to control her. But where do they come into contact? At this moment, Charlie suddenly realized that the silver beam of light she saw at the bottom of the sea was definitely not an illusion. It was very likely that it had entered the ship through the submarine compartment. Samantha nodded in agreement with Charlie's opinion. Just now the entire ship suddenly lost power due to the influence of low-frequency sound waves. Although the human ear cannot hear it, it has great destructive power. This sound can only be heard while in the boat. After hearing these words, the captain was extremely confused. He went to the control room to ask the parts. Unfortunately, he couldn't find any clues. According to surveillance cameras, the last area where Alicia appeared was only a submarine compartment. The captain ordered an immediate blockade of the area, prohibiting anyone from approaching. This unexpected incident almost caused a murder, so the corporation senior management was forced to report to Riku. Riku seemed very calm. He could still accept that unexpected things happened. The most important thing now is to get Alicia ashore to treat her. Other group members worried they would become the next victims. What they are most worried about is that investors cannot bear the losses and decide to cancel this research. Leon said he never imagined that he could see the sea at the North Pole, and until now, he still thinks he is dreaming. Charlie's parents are also marine experts. Since childhood, she lived on a research ship, until one day the ship encountered a storm. Charlie boarded a lifeboat and escaped, but her parents perished in the middle of the sea. Everyone thought Charlie would hate the sea, but she felt that by going near the sea she would be closer to her parents. Everyone waited silently, hoping things would develop in a good direction. Sure enough, they received a signal from IRR. On the other side, Charlie suddenly saw silver light emitting from the submarine compartment. She looked through the glass and saw countless points of light appearing on the water surface. They grow very quickly, soon gathering into human form. Charlie was so surprised that his eyes widened. At this time, Sam and Leon were also surprised to the point of freezing, because the signal they received was the human evolution diagram they had broadcast before. This is one of mankind's greatest discoveries. I didn't expect such strange creatures to exist under the sea. Not only can it control sea animals, it can also arbitrarily form any shape. After receiving the news, Riku immediately took a helicopter to the research ship. Through molecular analysis, the organism named IRR is a single-celled cell with a body. It can change shape and density, forming cell groups with more cells. But this is not the most miraculous thing. IRR previously attacked the staff in Alicia's research group. It wanted to merge with her cells, which showed that it had a very strong intention to invade. Not only that, previously, IRR also used sound waves to transmit images of the Earth 250 million years ago, when it was still a separate continent. It seems that its existence history is much longer than that of humans, and it can also transmit memories from previous lives. Fortunately, things did not develop in a worse direction. At least IRR sent a signal that they wanted to reconcile peacefully. The captain went up to the deck and was surprised to see that the sea contained so many terrifying creatures. 20 years ago, he was still a Navy soldier. This place is still covered by a very thick layer of ice, but now only small ice floes remain on the sea surface. Diver Luther also felt extremely guilty because he was the last person to come into contact with Alicia. If he had believed at that time that Charlie had seen the light, perhaps he would not have left Alicia alone. Charlie, standing next to him, suddenly spoke up. Maybe IRR entered Alicia's body not because he wanted to harm her, but because he wanted to use that way to understand people. Samantha felt that what Charlie said made a lot of sense. Just like the first time they came into contact with an intelligent creature like IRR, they also wanted to learn more about it. In the rest room of the research ship, Riku informed the captain that a few days ago, the coastal region of Nigeria was hit by a tsunami that caused many people to be in distress, including the family of a ship employee named Musa. After watching, the captain called Musa out to talk. The cold night wind blew and the sea became even more ferocious. At the same time, two employees wearing protective suits went to the submarine's compartment to take a bucket of water containing IRR cells and bring them to the laboratory. Cecile must quickly learn its characteristics. Unexpectedly, while conducting tests, she accidentally discovered that ketamine can quickly kill IRR cells. Riku asks if they can use this to destroy IRR. The experts present there were surprised. The testing environment could hardly resemble the actual results. Sigurd reminded them that they were here to negotiate with the IRR, not to wage war. Hearing this, the captain became angry and said there was no use in negotiating. IRR just destroyed the entire Nigerian coast. Sigurd could only try to make excuses. Maybe the tsunami was formed before they came here to negotiate. But the captain was from the military. He clenched his fists. If we know how to destroy the enemy, we should try. Riku supports the captain. Even if negotiations must show IRR that they have the weapon to kill it, only then can you take the initiative during negotiations. Sekli proposed a small-scale experiment plan that would not pollute the sea and let IRR know their tricks. After everyone thought for a while, they nodded in agreement one after another. Leon thought differently. Humpback whales were thought to be half extinct in the early 20th century. Later, people came up with all kinds of ways to protect them so they could continue to reproduce. Leon is able to translate this into whale language and relay it to the IRR to let it know that humans also care about marine life. But I don't know if this method is effective. Cecile prepared to spray poison into the IRR cell in the submarine storage compartment. She went with Diver Luther, two people wearing protective gear. slowly to the submarine compartment. Everyone was nervous outside, looking inside. After a drop of ketamine fell, the water surface quickly showed a beam of light. Next, a sticky liquid appears, followed immediately by sound waves being emitted. When everything returned to normal, the ship's power was lost again. After that, Luther floated on the water's surface, not knowing whether he was alive or dead. Everyone rushed to the emergency room, but unfortunately, they could not be saved. But this is not the worst thing. The ship's engine cannot be started. Now it can only float freely on the water. Not long after, it crashed into a small iceberg. When everyone was surprised, a large silver beam of light emerged above the water. It carried the entire ship out of the water. Everyone was so surprised that they were speechless. I didn't expect IRR to take revenge on them so quickly. The staff in the control room were calling for help when suddenly the boat shook again. Looks like IRR wants to destroy the ship. The captain in the control room was so scared that his face turned white. Sigurd took the opportunity to speak up. We cannot kill IRR in flowing water. Now the only thing that can be done is to live in peace with each other. They must convey the message that they want peace. Samantha was very worried when she heard that. The device emitting sound waves could not be started. They had to fix it before they could send out a signal. Seeing that the expedition ship was drifting very quickly, Sigurd worried that they could not wait until the repairs were completed. So he came up with a very bold idea. He wants to put IRR into the dead Luther's body so that the two cells can merge into one, thus making it feel that humans are also its own race. The only thing is that the IRR on the surface of the sea is not much, so Charlie must pilot the submarine to take Luther to a deeper place. Right at this moment, the expedition ship controlled by IRR crashed into a huge ice sheet. Time is running out for everyone. By the time rescue workers arrived, it was already too late. They could only use helicopters to take a few people ahead. The shipping company advises Riku to board the plane first, but he insists on staying, because now is an important moment to negotiate with IRR. Now the most important thing is to take the injured Alicia away. Cecily is a doctor, so she is forced to follow. Before leaving, she gave Charlie a tube of IRR cells, telling her to inject it into Luther at the last moment. If left for a long time, a reaction against IRR would occur. Suddenly, the ship shook violently again. Unexpectedly, the silver light pulled all the surrounding icebergs closer. As the helicopter ascended, they saw the ship surrounded by icebergs. Even when the ship's engine started, they couldn't escape. Cecily sat on the plane, anxiously looking down, praying for her teammate's safe return. At this time, Charlie's preparations were complete, and Luther's body was also carried into the back seat. When the ship's compartment door opened, the submarine once again sank to the bottom of the sea. Although Charlie's ability to control a submarine is not yet mature, under the captain's command, she reluctantly controls the submarine. At the same time, Samantha also finished repairing the device that emitted sound waves. They used whale sounds to continuously convey peace signals. As the submarine continuously dived deeper, a bright light appeared in front of Charlie. She was approaching the lair of the mysterious IRR species. Looking at the beautiful lights around him, Charlie suddenly discovered an extremely serious problem. Luther had passed away a long time ago. Even when IRR cells are injected into humans, it is difficult to blend into one. Maybe the other side won't feel the peace signal. Now she has to become a bridge to help the two sides talk to each other. Everyone in the control room objected vehemently. Unfortunately, the communication system fails, and they quickly lose contact with Charlie. By this time, Charlie had taken off his jacket, picked up the injection equipment, and sat in the back compartment. After closing the train door, she took the needle and stabbed it into her heart. She pressed the water release button. A large amount of seawater poured into the ship. At this moment, she felt the bone-chilling cold, her mouth kept panting, until the seawater flooded her head. She gradually lost consciousness. When the flushing compartment door opened, Charlie slowly floated out. IRR outside seemed to sense something. Each beam of light combined to form ropes that took Charlie swimming into the distance. Everyone knows Charlie is in danger. They all felt sorry for this great comrade. Unexpectedly, right after that, the icebergs around the ship began to move slowly. Not long after, the ship was freed. Everyone knew this was a peace signal sent by IRR, but they did not expect Charlie to succeed. At this moment, she was floating in the sea, her whole body lying on the belt of light like a giant bridge. The next day, big waves hit the shore. Charlie fainted on the beach. She suddenly opened her blue eyes. Part 1 of the movie The Swarm comes to an end. Thank you for watching.